Well, having short hair really brings out the fat in my face. Anyway, welcome back to Backtracking. As a pop punk fan, first and foremost, you'd honestly think that I do more episodes based on that genre, and see, whilst I will cover other pop punk bands that I love in the future, it wouldn't be fair to do every band that I like that does the genre in a row, so let's just do this one. To me, pop punk is a genre with its ups and downs and it tries to be unique, but sometimes it can try too hard. Other times you get Yellowcard. Despite having two breakups with their second one happening tomorrow as of recording this being permanent, these guys have been around for a long while. They hail from Jacksonville, Florida, and have been around for almost 2 decades, with their first breakup not included, of course. Their uniqueness comes in the form of a violin, but we'll get to that when we're past the intro, which we just about are. It's time for a 2-part backtracking episode, folks, and this time it's Yellowcard. We start with their 1997 debut, entitled Midget Tossing. Yeah, it was released through Takeover Records, co-owned by then-lead guitarist Ben Harper, and was presumably produced by the band themselves since I can't find anything on a producer. Now, to fans of the band today, you might be surprised to learn that they didn't always sound like they do. Part of that is due to their original lead singer Brian Dobson. Due to his vocal style, he's got a much deeper, distinctive voice to him, and it goes well with the band's style of hardcore punk. Yep, the band weren't always the pretty pop punk and violins that they are today. They were pretty rough around the edges back at their start, to be honest. Even having said that, the album itself is not a bad first effort, despite it being completely different to the style that we know by the band today. Also, it's not self-titled, which I kind of like, to be honest. It's also just over 34 minutes long, being their shortest piece of work. Remarkably, for a 1997 hardcore punk album, it doesn't fall too much into the traps of since we're a hardcore punk band, the songs have to be super short. Now, that happens apparently 4 times out of 11 songs, not to mention the hidden track. Dobson is a pretty good sounding vocalist, with his voice easy to understand. Ben Harper and Todd Clary play well on lead and rhythm guitar respectively. Warren Cook is good on the bass, keeping up quickly with everyone else, and Longino Parsons. I'm just going to say this right now, I love LP so much. He's honestly one of my favourite drummers ever, and possibly the best in pop punk. That's right, fight me Travis Barker fanboys. But interestingly enough, that's not all. See, better-known Yellowcard vocalist Ryan Key appears as a guest musician on this album, providing some backing vocals, and violinist Sean Mackin, who would join the band full-time after this album's release, also appears, playing his instrument, the violin, and singing backup as well. See, Ryan didn't join yet because he was the member of another Jacksonville-based punk band named Modern Amusement. Even then, you can kind of hear his voice from time to time, and it's easy to distinguish his higher-pitched vocals from Dobson's more fast-paced, deeper style of singing. Which is kind of an oxymoron now that I think about it. Whilst the album has more longer songs than short ones, it's pretty speedy most of the time in terms of instrumentation and pace. It works well and strikes a good balance for them. All in all, the album just sounds really, really good, and there's a lot to like about it. Standout songs include Get Off the Couch, Me First, Uphill Both Ways, Americans, and my favourite and their lovely cover For the Longest Time, even though it's not listed as a cover for some reason. I can recommend Midget Tossing, not the practice of tossing midgets, but the album. It's well balanced, it's well paced, and it sounds really good for its time. It's definitely worth a run through, in my opinion at least. Gets a recommendation from me. We move on with their 1999 sequel, Where We Stand, released on Takeover's label again. This one was produced by a dude named Sean Dewey, who does a pretty good job behind the booth. He basically takes the band's hardcore punk style and elevates it further, creating a good sound around the album structure. Also, I just realised I said further and not further. I meant further. The lineup is largely unchanged, with the exception of Sean Mackin becoming a permanent member, with this being the only album in Yellowcard's history to have a hardcore punk sound and actually have a violin. Yes, it did happen on Midget Tossing, but that was for 1 or 2 songs, so I'm not really counting that. I am counting it here, though. And speaking of Mackin, he actually does really, really good on the violin. In my opinion, he makes the instrument sound cool. Here he plays some amazing solos and provides quite a lovely backdrop to some of the songs in the album. He also provides more backing vocals, as do the other members sans LP, and it makes it sound a bit more like a traditional hardcore album that way, with some really clean and nice sounding shouty gang vocals. They're not shouting together, but are singing together to structure some catchy as hell choruses. And that's further bolstered by Dobson's own signature deep delivery. His own vocal performance has improved, with his clean singing sounding much better and expanding on his own range from time to time. Now, I didn't cover the messages of the first album because I didn't fully understand them, but I'd probably guess they're about angst and just not wanting to be stagnant and stuck where you are and move on to better things. I can relate. The only issue that I have with the album is that 2 of the songs from Midget Tossing are re-recorded, but they were both pretty good songs of Uphill Both Ways and Sue, so I'll allow it. Come to think of it, the album itself is only 30 seconds longer than their debut and has a total of 10 tracks. Well, 8 if you take away the songs that the band re-recorded. Anyway, the instrumentation is better this time around as well, with Ben playing a couple of really good solos. I've always found the guitar solo game of Yellowcard to be viciously underrated regardless of what lead guitars they have, which is a shame because it's really, 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 really good. One of the solos on this album even goes with a multi-instrument solo, but we'll cover that soon. Todd's own guitar work steps up, and he echoes the leads of brilliantly. Markin does greatly for his performance as a full-time member. His first performance as a full-time member. Warren's bass still sounds great, and LP's drumming steps up, adding more snare solos and double bass work. Standout songs include Kids, Time Will Tell, Anywhere But Here, and my favourite in the closer, On the Brink, which is the one with the multi-solo and just sounds so good. Excuse me. Sure, the album suffers from a little bit of white noise near the end to make up for the last 3 minutes, but it's still really good and it's a hell of a step up, and I can recommend it. We now go on to their third album, One for the Kids, released in 2001. There's some changes this time around. Hang on. It's the first to be on a different label, this time substituting Takeover for the much funnier sounding label of Lobster. It changes the sound, this time focusing more on their pop-punk sound that we know. And it's the first album with lead singer and rhythm guitarist Ryan Key, with Todd Clary and Brian Dobson having left by this point. Also, it's their first without any swearing. Yeah, I forgot to mention there was swearing in the first two Yellowcard albums. So, does all of that change work? Shockingly, yeah, it does. It's clear that Ryan's voice just fits the pop-punk sound even more. And the change of both vocalists and sound was more than a welcome addition, in my opinion. The time length of the album seems to be a bit dubious, as the wiki page seems to keep messing it up, listing this album as 4 minutes longer than it actually is. Hell, there was a bonus track on the version that I found, and even then it fell shorter than it says it is. There's an issue I came across with Where We Stand as well. Wikipedia just can't tell the time, apparently. On Where We Stand, the times were mixed up. Because, they took away 2 minutes from Where We Stand, but they added 4 onto One for the Kids. My head hurts just thinking about it. Anyway, this album itself doesn't really feel like such a huge change. Sure, there's absolutely no hardcore punk on it at all, but I guess that I'm just more biased towards that. I got into them pretty recently, and my first album was, well, we'll cover that in part 2 tomorrow. But yeah, a lot of people didn't seem to take too kindly to Where We Stand, but as I mentioned, I'm biased towards it as it's where they started building up what is now the signature Yellowcard sound. I meant to write take too kindly to One for the Kids there, my bad. Anyway, the production value sounds a lot better. Sure, there's not many effects, but it's mixed well enough to make it feel like a really authentic pop-punk album. The vocals sound great, with Ryan Key's soaring vocals a very stark contrast to Brian Dobson's deeper style. And with much clearer vocals, there are much clearer messages to the songs, mostly those about breakups, as is the norm of early 2000s pop-punk. Okay, so there is some stuff about missing the ones you love back home, and the fictional happy faces that people put on in the music business, but it's mostly the breakup stuff. Ryan's voice does a great job of conveying those messages without sounding too much like your stereotypical early 2000s pop-punk vocalist. He's also good on the rhythm guitar, learning to some good riffs of his own, and even playing the acoustic guitar well on a couple of the songs. It just sounds nice. Ben's guitar is consistently amazing. Sean's violin sounds great with some good leads of his own in songs. I think this is the first album where he starts leading with the violin to introduce songs. It's really good. Warren's bass keeps up with everyone else well, and LP's drumming has improved more technically, if anything, with more lovely cymbal work. Standout songs include Something of Value, Rockstar Land, AWOL, Big Apple Heartbreak, and possibly my favourite in Sure Shot, which has its own lovely little multi-solo in the middle. Even with all of the changes, Yellowcard managed to put out another solid album and gets a recommendation from me, even though it wasn't too well received from critics and audiences. But then again, opinions is opinions, I suppose. Next up, we reach their fourth album, In Ocean Avenue. Released in 2003, there are some more changes again. This time they switch from Lobster Records to the much better known Capitol label, and they bring in a new producer, Neil Averon. The only lineup changes in bass players, with newcomer Peter Mosley replacing Warren Cook. In a way, this became the signature Yellowcard lineup, despite only 2 people being there since the beginning, which are Longino Parsons and Ben Harper. Sure, Sean was kind of with them from the start, but you've got to remember that he was a guest musician at first, as was Ryan. I'm just saying it's odd to call this the signature lineup when only 2 of the founding members were still part of it at the time. Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention, because I didn't write this down because I'm an idiot, the producer for One for the Kids was a dude named Darren Rodell. Anyway, let's move on with Ocean Avenue. Anyway, yes, the album itself is, well, it's pretty damn awesome. It's the album that made Yellowcard. It created their sound, adding more violin, drumming, guitar work, and basically everything. It's also where I heard my first Yellowcard song in Breathing, back when I used to play Burnout 3. God, I loved the soundtrack of that game. Regardless, as I mentioned, this is where Yellowcard fully found their sound with the term that I like to coin as symphonic punk. I researched it, and that's not a real subgenre. It should be, though, especially if Yellowcard frickin' created it. Okay, so they only have a violin, but that counts as a symphonic instrument. If they can use it in rock and metal and get symphonic variants for those, they can do it with pop punk as well, damn it. And that sound is a really, really good one. There's a lot of infectious energy to this album, and they take it very seriously. Their musicianship has improved a lot, and a lot of that is to do with the new bassist and backing vocalist. Of course, Ryan's own singing is good, and Sean's backing vocal echoes and even supposed to on occasion. But Peter Mosley sings such a great backing melody on the album, and when the three come together, it sounds nothing short of magical. The production value has skyrocketed, and everyone provides a lot of greatness behind the booth, adding great effects to the instruments, making the echoing backing vocal sound really distinct, and making the violin sound like it matters, which it should in the case of Yellowcard. The band members... I'm stuttering a lot. The band members perform excellently, with Ryan's riff sounding great, his lyrics improving with messages of longing for the past, love, and wanting out of a bad place. His vocals also reach new heights, and as good as the backing singers sound, I accidentally said signers there. I accidentally wrote signers there, so that's where I got confused. There's no over reliance on them, which is a good thing. Ben Harper provides some catchy riffs and some really good solos of his own. Sean's violin still sounds good, and he adds great backdrop to the songs. Peter steps in greatly as the new bassist and backing vocalist, going well with the others like he's known them for years. And LP's drumming steps up in speed, with him giving amazing snare fills and double bass / cymbal combo work. Standout songs include the title track, Breathing, Way Away, the great closer in Back Home, and possibly my favourite in Miles Apart. There's a lot to like about Ocean Avenue, from the top-notch musicianship to the great balance of songs to the amazing production. I can definitely recommend this one. It's probably my favourite album by them. We then move on to their fifth effort in Lights and Sounds, released in 2006 and being the longest gap between albums, not including their first split. This album had a lot of potential. The lineup was unchanged, they were still signed with Capitol, and Neil Avram was still the producer. So my question is, how? How did the band carry so much potential and basically have that lead to absolutely nothing? Yes, well, it is true that Ocean Avenue is seen as the band's best stuff. Lights and Sound is widely regarded as their worst. I will get to the reasons why, but I want to put up a disclaimer. I don't fully hate the album. Okay, so it's the longest album at down near 53 minutes. It's also really dragged out, overproduced, slightly repetitive, and kind of... it's just boring, really. I guess that stems from the style change, swapping out their signature pop punk with alternative rock. That's not the worst switch, and past albums have proven that the band can change styles almost effortlessly. But the difference was that they had a core, and they added elements of other stuff while sticking to it. Lights and Sounds takes that core, rips it out, and stomps all over it and tries to put it back in. There was a lot of potential to get this right, especially with the fact that nothing had changed at this point since the release of Ocean Avenue. But somehow it just went really, really wrong. Neil's production is extremely overblown. He makes the guitars sound way louder than they have any right to be. Even with the rest of the instruments sounding louder, the guitars just seem to dominate everything. Ryan Key's vocals are barely heard, and he actually sounds like he's pulling back from time to time. He's really a guy that should let loose in all honesty, and that's when he's at his best in my opinion. Sean Mackin's violin isn't bad when it can be heard. Much like Ryan Key's voice, it just gets drowned out, and even when you can hear it, it sounds too much like the guitar's high-end notes, so it's really indistinguishable in that way. The album is even strange in tone, having a more mature and serious feel to it, and trying to be a concept album about how the band felt around the time of the album's release. I do like that idea, and there are some good stories to be told, if you can hear the guy that's supposed to be telling the fucking stories. Even the vocals are screwy, as you can hear the backup singing, but it sounds a little too similar to Ryan's vocals. Back to the guitar, I'd be remiss not to mention Ben Harper's departure shortly before the album's release. He's still credited as lead guitarist, and we'll get to his replacement in part 2 of the episode, but it still sucks that he left. Peter's bass work actually gets more time to shine, but when other instruments start playing along, it's really hard to distinguish. And also LP's drumming. I'd say it was awesome if I had the chance to actually hear it. It just sounds so by the numbers on this album, and I'm not really a fan of it, to be honest. Standout songs include the title track, Rough Landing Holly, Waiting Game, and probably my favourite and Sure Thing Falling. Lights and Sounds is a decent album that unfortunately gets drowned out by overproduction and dragged out by a long time frame. Not to mention repetitive lyrics and vocals, and a concept that should have worked but just ultimately wind up falling flat. I can't recommend this one, I'm afraid, but maybe you'll like it for yourself, who knows. The change just really wasn't for me. Anyway, that's it for part 1. I'll see you tomorrow for part 2, where I'll cover the last 5 albums from Paper Walls to their self-titled final album. I'll see you all then, and until then, thanks for listening.